being at Range today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Graywood. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Mr. Robert Hutchings. I will be chairing the hearing today. I'm joined on the panel by Mr. Doug Marks and Mr. Ron Merritt. Representing the Assessment Taxation Department of the City of Winnipeg is Mr. Kem Wong. Our administrative personnel is Ms. Phoebe Graywood. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with this board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following their swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questioning that the applicant may have and the panel, and then the applicant's testimony following the same questioning by the applicant and by the assessor and the panel. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and makes its decisions based on the evidence presented today. We will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket today. Ms. Graywood, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Wong, can you state your full name?
I'm Wong.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Ms. Shindelman, please state your full name. Diane Shindelman. Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, I do. Thank you. You state your full name.
Alexander Acton.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graywood. Good afternoon to Mr. Wong, Mr. Ackman, and Mrs. Shindelman. First item on the docket is item number 1, file number 24-615, roll number 12097804-955. Address is 570 Bradbrook Avenue, and we're dealing with a 2025 realty assessment appeal. Mr. Wong, bear with me while I pull up your brief, please.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Wong, when you are ready.
For this property and maybe a couple other properties, I've made a couple revisions to the value for them, and I believe that Ms. Shindelman is in agreement with those revised values. Is that true? Is that the case, Diane?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wong, for the record, you have to enter your brief into evidence and go through the recommendation for us, please.
Okay.
If you just want to summarize simply on the brief, but we do need the record, please.
For sure, I will definitely do that.
Okay.
For the first property, the subject property is 570 Stradbrook Avenue, and the file number is 24-615. The roll number is 120-978-04955. And this is a residential apartment block that's 4 stories high. It was built in 2018, and it has 41 units. At the bottom of my page 1 is the recommendation for a revised value of 11,489,000, and that workup is on page 6. And like I said, I believe that the applicant is in agreement with this value.
Okay, please go through your values and calculation.
Sure. On page 6. On page 6 is a summary of the income and expenses for the subject property, using their 2022 income of 836,000 and averaging the expenses from 2020 and 2022 at 298,000. The estimated NOI is 537,000 and capped at 4.7%. The estimated value is 11,438,439,000 rounded.
Okay, thank you. And what did you revise to come up with the recommendation?
The net operating income.
Based on?
Their actual income and expenses.
Okay, so you used actuals, okay. And the revised value is, I'm sorry?
11,439,000. Actually,
489.
Actually, I sometimes I have problems with 3 and 8, and the value on my page 6 is 11,439,000, but on my front page it's 11,489,000.
Yes.
So the front page should be corrected to 11,439,000.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Any questions or comments from the applicant, please?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on the recommendation, please, for the record?
We accept the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions of the assessor?
Just one. Mr. Wong, I think your NOI was 537, 632, and
Yes,
you capped it at 4.7.
correct.
Okay. Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize, something came through there. Mr. Marks, any questions of the assessor?
No questions this time, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, you used the existing or the original cap rate, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, but a revised NOI.
Yes.
Okay, based on actuals?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask the applicants who's going to be presenting? We require you to present your brief for the record.
Who's presenting? Are you referring to
The applicant?
the property or in general?
No, for this particular property, we're dealing with this file and require your evidence to be presented for the record. So if you'd like to summarize your original brief and that you're accepting the recommendation.
Okay, I will have to look it up because I didn't bring a brief because we were accepting the recommendation.
For the record, the brief or some kind of information on your brief is required.
Okay, I will provide something right now, but it'll have to be from my phone.
Okay, that's fine, Mr. Schindelman.
Okay. We used actual rents and actual numbers on this property. We capped it higher at 5%, and we came to a value of 10,631,954. On discussing with the assessor, we agreed to his evaluation of 11,439,000. We provided some comparable rents to support our rent numbers, which ended up being the same as the assessor was using as far as rental numbers. And we had some reasons for using a higher cap rate, but we were agreeable to his cap rate in the end.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly how much else you need from me.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So just to confirm, there was no documentation presented to the Board of Revision, or there was and it's on record?
There was not.
I believe it is on. I believe it is on record because I have it, and it was sent to me by the Board of Revision. So
Okay.
I believe it's on record.
Okay, that's perfect. Thanks, Mrs. Schindelman. Okay, Mr. Wong, any questions of the applicant?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks, any questions?
None for me, thank
In the
you.
property file.
Mr. Merritt, any questions?
Then thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. Schindelman, should I ask you questions or should I ask Mr. Ackman?
Either one, if it's okay, either one of us will respond if you're okay with that.
Of course, yeah, that's right. Sure, whichever's more comfortable answering, that's fine. You're both sworn in. I just want to confirm, I think maybe that you accepted the total recommended value rather than accepting the individual cap rate. Would that be fair?
That's fair.
Okay, thank you. All right. That concludes item number 1, file number 24-615. Next item on the docket, item number 2, file number 24614, roll number 12092475 5000. The address is 270 Broadway. And we are dealing with a 2025 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Wong, can you pull up your brief, please?
Yeah, I can get the file number and the property on record.
Yes, please.
Okay. The subject property is 270 Broadway. The file number is 24-614. The roll number is 120-924-75000. This is a residential apartment block that's 3 stories high. It was built in 1940 and it has 31 suites. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $908 to get a potential income of $337,000. We used a 4.3% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $323,000. And we used a 49% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $163,000. Capped at 5.15%, we have an estimated market value of $3,175,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables showing that the rents that we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the property owner. In stabilizing the subject properties net operating income, I used their 2022 income of $303,000. use their average expenses from 2021 to 2022 at 139,000, giving a stabilized net operating income of 164,000. You can see the repair and maintenance figures for 2020, for 2021 was, I would say, noticeably higher than in 2022 and 2020. And you can also notice that there's a corresponding, I guess, increase in vacancy in 2021. So that's why I didn't use the 2021 expenses in the stabilization of their net operating income. So in only using 2020 and 2022 expenses, which seem to have more normal vacancy and more normal repair and maintenance, their stabilized net operating income is about 164,000, which supports the model's net operating income of 163,000. On page 7 is some information on how we derived our cap rates. With the majority of the cap rates between the 20th and 80th percentile, ranging from 4.7 to 5.45%, although there are cap rates that are higher than 5.45%, and there are cap rates that are lower than 4.75%. On page 8 are some cap rate sales. It ranges from about 3% to about 5.74%. And on page 10, and the remainder of my brief are the income statements submitted by the property owner. So when you look at their actual net operating income, it supports the net operating income that the model has estimated at 163,000, and the model cap rate is supported by the market cap rate sales. So I ask you maintain the assessed value at 3,175,000.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Did the applicants have any questions of the assessor's evidence presented?
Yes, we do. On page 8 of your the assessor's brief, can you tell me, Mr. Wong, which sales you would call comparable to the subject property?
Well, there are a few of them that are that were built in the 1950s or 1960s. I think those were probably the most comparable.
Like, can you tell me which ones?
724 Sergeant, 459 Sergeant,
724 Sergeant,
241 Young, 473 Burroughs, and I would say the bottom 4 at 700 St. Mary's and 203 Bertrand, 32 Arden and 555 Corden.
So the first, let's see, 727 Sergeant to 241 Young and 473 Burroughs Avenue. Would you say they have quite a bit less number of suites than the subject property?
They do have a lower suite count.
Did you notice that the majority of the cap rates on the properties with lower suite numbers have a lower cap rate.
Yes.
Do you know why that would be?
I can only speculate as to there being a larger pool of buyers that are capable of buying smaller suite properties.
I would agree with that. So the
Okay.
subject is 31 suites, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you not think that maybe some of the properties with 31 suites would be more comparable, like maybe 677 Maryland?
That could be the case, but there are other property sales on there that could be comparable as well, potentially like 150 Hendon.
150 Hendon. Do you know what the area looks like, the neighborhood of 150 Hendon?
I'm actually not familiar with the Hendon Avenue.
If I said it was almost adjacent to Assiniboine Park along the river and in a lovely residential neighborhood, would you agree? Would that be comparable to the subject at all?
It may not be the most comparable to the subject property, but the thing is, we have a very limited number of sales in the city, and it would be difficult, if not impossible, for us to find a maybe an exact comparable in the area, similar size property with similar age and similar condition. It would be, might say it's almost impossible. So we try to do the best we can to try to estimate a appropriate cap rate for all the properties in Winnipeg, including the subject property. And when I look at some of the estimates of value that the model makes, I would say the model is a reasonably accurate in terms of estimating property values. So using the cap rates that it has utilized.
But like I said, is there any reason why you wouldn't pick, 677 Maryland or 32 Arden? It has 23 suites. 203 Woodlawn at least has 16 suites, a little bit closer. I mean, they're all, I guess the argument would be similar to your argument on why you did pick the cap rates in the 4% range compared to.
Okay, Mr. Schindelman, your board on the evidence, can you just question the assessor on what he's presented? You have your opportunity to present the evidence that you wish.
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out how the cap rate was arrived at. I'm trying to
I didn't select the cap rates. Our cap rates our values are model driven. And so the model takes into consideration the attributes of the property in terms of its age and location, and it takes into consideration all the sales information that we have available to us, and it estimates a cap rate for the property. And in this case, it estimated 5.15%, which it seems to fall in the range pretty well. It may be. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I want to confirm that once you get to hearing, it becomes a little bit more specific of an assessment.
It could, and in my view, the 5.15 definitely falls within the range of possible cap rates for this type of property.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much. That's all we have. Mr. Chairman, we also have rebuttal. I sent it in.
Okay, Ms. Graywood, do we have access to the rebuttal submitted by the applicant?
I can distribute that now.
Okay, so we'll have to wait until everybody's shared that information before we proceed.
Should be in your folders, I'm just gonna know this is right here.
Okay. Um, Ms. Greenwood, can you tell us where we'd find that in the listing of
I
the,
would be next to item 2.
Got it.
okay,
It would say item 2, 24,614, 270 Broadway, applicant above.
I've got that. Does everybody have it?
Yes,
Okay, yep.
Merit?
I don't believe I've received it in the email yet.
It does look like it was sent.
Okay, I just got it.
Let us know when you're ready, Mr. Wong.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Sherman, we're ready, please. Rebuttal?
Thank you. On the second page, actually, I apologize, these pages are not numbered, but we'll just flip through page by page. Our rebuttal is based on rebutting the cap rates, the cap rate used. And with respect to the chart above, we can see that the properties with lower suite numbers have a lower cap rate, and as Mr. Wong mentioned, it's likely because there is a stronger demand for this size of building here in Winnipeg. More investors can buy a smaller suite type building, and then the cap rate comes down when there's higher demand than for this type of property. I wanted to draw your attention to 677 Maryland Street. It has 32 units. It's a little bit older than the subject, but it has an effective age of 1972, which is actually younger than the subject. And the value is $75,000 per suite, and it has a cap rate of 5.5%. This property, for the things I just mentioned, would be most comparable to the subject. The subject also does not have any parking, and these properties you'll see on the next few pages, they all have parking available to the tenants. So if we just flip to the next page, 727 Sargent, it has a cap rate of 2.99, but it also has parking. And 459 Sargent is 4.75, and it has a parking lot for tenants. 150 Hendon is the property we were talking about earlier. It is located in a residential neighborhood with green space next to the Assiniboine River, and as a comp to 270 Broadway with no parking, and this one also has balconies. I would not see how this is at all comparable. The little photo below shows the large parking lot. Again, the next page, 241 Yonge Street has a large parking lot as well available to the tenants. 473 Burroughs, 5.75 cap with parking. Again, the picture below shows the parking lot to the sort of top of the photo side of the building. 203 Woodlawn is a 5.3 cap rate with parking shown all around the building below. And 677 Maryland, the 5.5 cap rate, shows the parking to the left side of the building. And again, the building looks quite a bit similar to the subject with masonry brick on the outside, no balconies, but this one has parking. 2390 McPhillips, also in the comparable chart, is a brand new, well, I think it's maybe 5 years old, brand new residential property in the McPhillips area. Balconies, amenity spaces, as indicated on the next few pages. Brand new interior. That one, in our opinion, doesn't appear at all comparable, and I'm not sure why it would be in the chart. The next page, 700 St. Mary's, 3.6 with parking. And 203 Bertrand also has a parking lot. And 32 Arden. Finally, 555 Forden, 5.74%, and it also has parking.
Anything else from the applicants regarding the rebuttal?
That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, any questions of the rebuttal presented by the applicants?
No questions. Everything that they presented appears to be accurate. It seems to be representative of the information that I presented.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions of the applicant's rebuttal?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks, any questions?
And I have no questions either. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Schindelman, the only one I'm wondering about is the description of the one on Hendon Avenue. Sorry, where are you here? Okay. Page, oh, I guess.
Page 4, fourth page in.
Yeah, okay. So that is, I guess, located in Charleswood, is that right? I guess.
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct.
You stated it's adjacent to Assiniboine Park. Would that be accurate?
By you, takes you just somewhere.
I guess it's on this street that is heads right to Assiniboine Park, yes. I mean, it's not adjacent like View Crescent, but it's on View.
So it's off of VLO Drive?
Yes, it is.
Okay, got you there.
The 3410 building actually has a VLU address shown on that aerial.
And that would be the Manitoba Housing, is that correct?
No. At the top of the lower image, there's a 3410, two buildings that share the same parking lot.
Uh, 3410. Sorry, I don't see that.
Left.
On the sort of,
The roof of the smaller building.
and not with the red dot, the one without the red dot.
Okay, so there's a lot there between the two buildings, is that right?
3400 is was a single family home. And again, 3400 and 3410 are VLU addresses.
Okay. So sorry, I'm trying to figure out where the parking is for the subject property.
It shares this parking lot where you see all the little cars. To the left of the subject building, but
They're on the same wall.
yeah, they're on the same.
Yeah.
I believe these two buildings are on the same roll, just so you know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's one development per se, and then the parking is shared between the two buildings there.
And my question is, what is the building next to these two subject properties?
It's
3,400.
Pardon me.
the one little smaller little roof you see there is a single family home, not in our role.
No,
Okay, but I'm saying what is adjacent to this subject property towards Roblin Boulevard? Right next,
Roblin would be below, Roblin Boulevard would be below this photo.
okay,
In some ways, it's quite far from Roblin Boulevard.
yeah, but what is next door to the south of the subject property?
The Manitoba housing,
Manitoba Housing?
yes.
Okay. That's what the parking is on the bottom side, would that be accurate?
no.
No, that parking is all part of this, of the 150 Hendon site.
Okay. Oh yes, now I know where we are. Okay, perfect. So between Roblin and Violo Drive, west side of Hendon Avenue, Hendon Street, is it Hendon Avenue? Yeah, okay. Got it. Okay,
Yeah, you got it.
all right, now I know where we are. All right. Mr. Merritt, any questions?
Yes, I have a few. Mr. Wong, this property is on Broadway.
Building with the rebuttal, did I already ask you that? Sorry.
I think we finished with the rebuttal. I
Okay.
think we're
Okay.
questioning the
Assessment.
assessment presentation.
Perfect, thank you. Okay.
So, Mr. Wong, this property is on Broadway Avenue, and it's on the corner of, I guess, Donald and Broadway. And this was built in 1940. There's 31 units there. There is no parking for this building at all. The city has used the model-driven cap rate of 5.15. In view of the no parking, in view of the age, do you feel as if the cap rate should be the 5.15, or should it be higher?
I feel a 5.15 cap rate is reasonable. I have seen properties where they don't have any parking, but at the same time they still sell, for one, and for two, they actually sell for cap rates that are in this range as well, and they also sell for cap rates that are in the 4% range. That's what I've observed, is that even though properties don't have any parking associated with them, it's not like they don't sell at all, nobody wants them, but they do sell, and they still have cap rates that are in the in this vicinity in terms of cap rates. So if it does make a little bit of a difference, I would think that it would be very, very nominal, but it would be pretty difficult to find to be able to quantify that with the limited amount of sales that we have. So I feel that the 5.15 is reasonable. And like I said, if parking did make a difference, which I actually don't know if it does, it probably, if it does a little bit, it would be a nominal amount to the cap rate.
Okay, but the argument comes down, this building is, like, according right to the V-Day, 83 years old.
Yeah, a lot of the inventory in Winnipeg is around that age, maybe built in 1950 or 1960, and so that's just like, for me, this is a kind of a normal aged property, and the properties that are kind of built in 1980 or 1990, which is actually 30 years ago, those are actually the kind of the newer stock, but a lot of apartments are built in this date range.
All right. So you're sticking with the model-driven 5.15.
I feel a 5.15 is reasonable, especially given some of the cap rate sales that were presented on page 8.
All right, I thank you very kindly. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Merritt. Mr. Marks, any questions of the assessor?
My questions were asked and answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, I would like clarification on your page 8. When I read the explanation of why those sales are there, am I to understand that these comparables are not specific to the subject property?
That is correct. They are there to substantiate the accuracy of the model, to sort of say that the model's cap rates are within the market in terms of cap rate. So that's the cap rate sales are there to substantiate the rates that the model is applying.
So you don't put them in to be used as defense of the specific subjects?
No.
Okay. And if they're only put in to defend the methodology of the model, would that be accurate?
Yeah. It's pretty much what like the purpose of showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model derived capitalization rates.
Okay. So I think Mrs. Schindelman was getting to, so where does the cap rate of 5.15% come in or come from, I guess?
It is estimated. It is estimated by the model based off of the attributes of the property, whether it's like the age and size of the building.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Wong, I'll ask you right now, are you going to have rebuttal on Mrs. Gentleman's brief?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, that is my only question, I believe. Okay, Mrs. Schindelman, or to the applicants, bear with us 1 second while we pull up your brief, please. Okay, Mrs. Schindelman, when you're ready, please.
Okay, thanks very much. Page 1 of the brief is 1 page in. The property is 31 units, 3-story walk-up, built in 1940. 7 are bachelor suites, 24 are 1-bedroom suites, so there's no 2 bedrooms, they're all small units. There's no balconies, and it's situated on Broadway Avenue, as mentioned before, and there's no central air conditioning. There's something called a downtown parking permit that's available to certain buildings in the downtown area, certain residential buildings. This building is not a party to that arrangement. These tenants cannot get a downtown parking permit. So the only option for any tenant with a car at this building is to find a surface parking lot and pay, $100 to $200 a month for a stall. So that is a negative, a strong negative for this, and affects the value. These tenants, again, have to just compete with, or this building will compete with other buildings that have that ability to get the parking, the overnight parking, or the downtown parking permit. And so that is a negative effect of, again, on the value. This building is ready for renovation. It's old and needs work. I'll explain.
It's very costly to do the renovations in this building, and part of the reason that this cap rate is impaired compared to other assets, when we go to change pipes in the building, we find that a number of the pipes were actually buried in the concrete that was poured for the floor or poured for the wall. We find the same condition for some of the electrical cables. A lot of the units have fuse boxes instead of panels, which inhibits your ability to put in modern amenities that tenants may like, such as a dishwasher or a wall air conditioner, without blowing fuses and having to constantly replace them. A new panel is a significant expense in the context of a suite renovation like this. So we note that renovations here are much more costly than some of the subject comparables from a cap rate perspective.
On page 2 is our income approach to value. From the outset, we are agreeing with the assessment department, rental income, vacancy, net operating income. It's very similar to the actual. And as I'm sure you already know, our disagreement is with the cap rate. We've used a 5.5 cap rate, which is just slightly above the range, but we've explained some of the reasons why, and we'll explain some more why we feel it is in that cap rate range. Our value is $2,972,970. I guess $2,973,000. Rental income, we've used the same. Vacancy rate, we've used the same, and expenses, we've used the same. So if we go to the capitalization rate chart, the 20th to 80th percentile is 4.75 to 5.45. We have used 5.5. This is an old building that has not been modernized, no air conditioning, no balconies, no in-suite laundry, no fitness areas, no common rooms, and 0 parking stalls. The age and condition of this building places it in a higher capitalization range. For these reasons, the capitalization rate must be at least 5.5, just above the 80th percentile. We went to as many sales as we could find as well, and arrived at 3 sales that we feel are in the range that are similar to the subject property. Comparable one is at 181 Maryland, sold in April 2023, and has a 5.23 cap rate. It was built in 1955 and has 11 units. 675 Tebow, it was sold in November 2022 at a 6.42 cap rate, built in 1961 and has 9 units. That's on the next page, page 4. And you can see it looks similar to the subject. 534 Wardlaw was sold in 2020 with a 4.99 cap rate. It was built in 1913, so it's a little bit older and has 14 units. So you can see these on the next few pages. Comparable 2, it appears to have new windows and has been refurbished, and it is smaller than the subject. Comparable 3, this is the one that was 1913, but you can see that it looks like it's been completely renovated. It has new windows. It looks like new steps at the front, some masonry work on the front. It appears to have been.
I'm muted.
Sorry? Just see something? Oh, it appears to have been completely renovated. The subject property is similar in type of building to these 3 comparables, and we have used a cap rate of 5.5, which is in the range of these 3 buildings, 499 to 6.42. We submit that the value of the subject property is $2,973,000. The remaining pages are just the financial statements for the property, which, as I said before, we're in agreement with those numbers on the value. Okay, thank you. That's everything.
Thank you to the applicants. Thank you. Mr. Wong, any questions of the applicant's brief?
Yeah, just I guess with regards to your cap rate sales, were you able to find, I mean, the third comparable was built in 1913, so it's a little bit older than the subject property. The other properties
Yes.
are probably a little bit closer, but their comparable 1 has 11 units and comparable 2 has 9 units. were you able to find any comparable sales that were maybe more comparable unit-wise to the subject property?
We would contend that if the unit count went up based on what we saw earlier, the cap rate would also increase. So this was what we could come up with that was most similar in terms of age and location.
Okay, so this is all that was available?
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
we don't get the mailers like the city does, so this is, we found things in similar area, similar appearance.
Mr. Wong, to be fair to the applicant, this is the evidence they presented.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. And I guess you were saying some things about the property not having any parking or it being old or lacking amenities such as in-suite laundry. I was looking at the income and expenses for 2022. It appears that the vacancy is about 2.55%. Would you say that the subject property is fairly desirable based off of the vacancy that is currently there?
I think that in the city, there is a demand for housing.
Okay.
And so, you know, I would suggest that maybe it does lease up, but it wouldn't be the first to lease up.
Okay, but it's not affecting its the ability to rent the property. Those factors that you might have mentioned regarding the parking or the lack of in-suite laundry.
Well, I would suggest, I mean, you looked at, you know, you happened to look at 2022. I mean, 2021, it was quite a bit higher, the vacancy. I mean, perhaps it's cyclical or, you know.
Yes.
So yes, that in that particular year, yeah, it was great for the property.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Mr. Marks, any questions of the assessor?
We thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions of the assessor? The applicant, sorry.
I think Ron's muted.
Mr. Merritt,
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't have any questions. Thank you very kindly.
Okay. To the applicants, I guess my only confirmation that you're using the city's net operating income, accepting their parameters, and you're applying a cap rate of 5.5% as opposed to 5.1% by the assessor.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. My only question to the applicants is, will you be presenting that rebuttal evidence as we go through this hearing today?
Do I have more rebuttal for the other properties?
The same, yeah.
Yes, we do.
Okay, is it the same document as we've just gone through
I
regarding?
think It's,
There's a little bit of
I think
information.
it's quite similar, but there is a tiny bit of difference for each property, but it's pretty similar.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. So each property on the docket today is going to have rebuttal. Would that be accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wong, any rebuttal for you on the way through?
No.
Okay, perfect. As long as I know in advance. Perfect, thank you. Okay, that concludes 270 Broadway. Next item on the docket is item number 3, file number 24-592, roll number 12-093-26000. Address is 301 Broadway. And we're dealing with a 2025 realty assessment appeal. And Mr. Wong, I believe you've got a rec coming up, but we'll have to go through the evidence regarding that. Okay, so when you are ready, Mr. Wong, 201 Broadway.
The subject property is 301 Broadway. The file number is 24-592. The roll number is 120932-66000. This is a residential apartment that's 3 stories high. It was built in 1938 and has 31 units. You can see on the bottom of my page 1 that I recommend that the value be revised to $2,133,000. And if you can refer to my page 6. You can, on the second chart is the stabilized income for the property. I used their average income from 2020 to 2022 at $269,000, and their average expenses from 2020 to 2022 at $160,000, giving a net operating income of $108,000. That's just a little bit less than what the model has estimated at $117,000, capped at 5.10%. The estimated market value is $2,133,000. And that is my recommendation for this property. And I believe the applicant is agreeable to this.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wong, your workup, okay, is on page 6, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, revised NOI to 108,798. Are you revising the cap rate?
No.
Okay. Resulting in a recommendation to $2,133,000.
Correct.
Thank you very much. To the applicants, any comments?
No comments.
Do you accept the recommendation for the record?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions of Mr. Wong?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Yep.
Mr. Marks, any questions of the assessor's evidence?
None for me at this time. Thank you very much.
And I have no questions either. For the record, to the applicants, we're going to ask you to briefly describe your brief and for the record. And when you're ready, please.
Okay, thank you. Our income approach was in agreement with the city's income, vacancy, and operating costs for net operating income of $117,000. And we used a capitalization rate of 5.4% and arrived at a value of $2,178,000. It is slightly, sorry, yeah, that's our value.
Okay. And did you have rebuttal on record to be presented?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Wong, any questions of the applicants?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks, any questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Merritt?
I have none. Thank you.
I have no questions either. Thank you. That concludes item number 3, 301 Broadway. Next item on the docket is item number 4, file number 24-494. Address is 333 Wellington Crescent. Roll number is 12-0225-39,000. And we're doing a 2025 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Wong, let us find your brief, please.
Okay.
When you're ready, please, Mr. Wong, 333 Wellington Crescent.
Okay. The subject property is 333 Wellington Crescent. The file number is 24-494. The roll number is 120-225-39000. This is a residential apartment block that's 6 stories high. It's built in 1954 and it has 49 suites. 49 suites with 36 indoor parking stalls and 7 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,356 to get a potential income of $797,000. We use a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $772,000. And we use the 45% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $420,000. Capped at 5.6%, we have an estimated market value of $7,502,000. On page 5 is our rent comparable, showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. So you can see at on the bottom chart, you can see the repair and maintenance figures from 2022 to 2014. And you can see that the repair and maintenance figures, they seem to, from 2014 to 2020 it seems a little bit consistent, although it fluctuates between 128 and 200,000. But you can see in 2021 and 22 that it is substantially higher than that. So you can also see that the vacancy was kind of steady in 2014 to 2018 and 19, but then the vacancy is up to 12 and 10% in the years where their repair and maintenance was fairly high. So I feel that the repair and maintenance figures in 2022 and 2021 were not representative of how the property might normally operate. So the average repair and maintenance, so I took the average for the repair and maintenance from 2014 to 2020, and you can see it's the average for those years is 148,000. And what I did was I just, if you look at the chart at the very top, I removed their actual income, or sorry, their actual repair and maintenance, which for 2022 and 2021, it seems like they're improving the property. So I removed those numbers and I added back in the repair and maintenance at a more, I would say, normal or stable figure of 148,000. So after doing that, if you look at my middle chart, their potential income I used their potential income from 2022 at 828,000. And I used a 5.77% vacancy, which is the average vacancy from 2014 to 2019, the years where they seem to be more normal. And for their expenses, they stabilize out to be, or they average out to be 403,000 after adjusting for their high repair and maintenance. So their estimated net operating income is 423,000. This supports the model's net operating income of 420,000. So on page 7 is information on how we derived our cap rates. And on page 8 are some cap rate sales to substantiate the cap rates that the model is applying. On page 10 is a description of the subject property with some pictures. So yeah, on page 10, you can see this is the images, and the information is from shindicoliving.com. And you can see it does indicate that the units appear to be newly renovated. So the remaining brief is the income and expenses submitted by the income statements submitted by the property owner. So this property does appear to be in the process of being renovated, as indicated by the increased vacancy and the higher repair and maintenance costs. To reflect this, I've made adjustments to the vacancy and the repair and maintenance amounts to estimate a reasonable NOI, and that resulting NOI of 423,000 supports the model's NOI of 420,000. And the model cap rate of 5.6% is supported by the market as well, with regards to cap rates. Actually might be a little bit high in terms of what I've seen for say good properties, which I would probably consider this to be a good property. So I feel that the model cap rate is reasonable, and I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $7,502,000.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Do the applicants have any questions on the evidence presented by the assessor?
Yes, we have some questions. On page 4 of your brief, it shows in the income approach to value, the expense rate is 45.6%.
Yes.
And then on page 6 of your brief, your little middle section uses 48.82%.
Yes.
I was just curious why those two were, how that's one supports the other.
I'm not saying that the 48% supports the 45%. I'm saying that the estimated net operating income of 423,000 supports the model's net operating income of 420,000. It's unlikely that we're going to get all the numbers to align perfectly to the subject property. That's what the model does, is it estimates the values, and so the chances of matching all the line items is, I would say, low. But when you look at the overall estimate of the NOI and value, it appears to be pretty accurate.
Okay, and then on page 6, you went to the trouble of adjusting the 5 years of expenses, correct? Of the 5 years of actual expenses.
The repair and maintenance, yes, yeah.
Repair and maintenance. Okay. So then do you know the percentages of the operating expenses for each of those years after you adjusted them? Do you know the expense ratios for each of those years?
No, not off the top of my head.
I've calculated them. I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, am I allowed to tell him what numbers I came up with when I calculated them?
Perhaps I'll leave that for your presentation, please.
Okay. If I was to say that the 5 years of adjusted expenses that you arrived at were higher than the number used in your sort of proof, I guess, would you agree? I guess you can't agree. You don't know because you can't calculate.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that even with that number, if that expense ratio was a little bit higher, that I would say to that the estimated net operating income with what I feel are, I guess, reasonable adjustments would result in a net operating income that supports the model, or that is in line with the model. So that's what I might say to that.
Okay, but if
Mrs. Schindelman,
yes.
this is what the evidence that the assessors presented. When you present, you can come up with your different figures. The panel will look at each party's evidence and decide how much weight you're going to put in each party's evidence, okay?
Yes, I understand.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to understand, I guess the approach by the assessor is just to come to the bottom line, but how he gets to the bottom line, it doesn't seem to matter.
Well, he's presented his numbers. I guess you wanted specific percentages, but he says he doesn't have them right now, so we'll leave it at that. We've got the final number, and yeah, and his presentation of his average expense allowance. So we'll go with that, and then you can present otherwise.
we're just wondering why in your workup for the table on page 6, 2020 repair and maintenance was included despite there being a high vacancy rate. Was there a 10% threshold on vacancy where it was included or not included? Because obviously the 108 will bring down your average there.
Yeah. I just kind of thought it would be fair to include all that because, I mean, you can see the 108 there, but you can also see the 203 in 2016 that was included. So, I mean, I could have excluded the 108 and excluded the 2016 value of 203. So it's, I mean, I think there's multiple ways that you can do it. But I feel that this was a reasonable way to do it.
In light of that noise kind of in the data, do you think the correlation is that strong between repair and maintenance and vacancy?
I believe it's reasonable. I mean, there's no way that we would be able to confirm 100% either way.
Thank you.
Do the applicants have any other questions?
No, that's good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Mrs. Schindlerman, are you going to present rebuttal on this property?
Yes.
Okay, let's finish questioning the assessor first. Mr. Marks, any questions of the assessor?
Just one on years 2021, 2022. Was that when there was some major renovations done on the building?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear that.
The years 2021 and 2022 for repair and maintenance, was that when there was upgrades done to the building?
I can't say for sure, but if you look on my page 6 and you look at the expense ratios for 2022 and 2021, they're at about 79% and 78% compared to maybe 46% in 2020 and 52 and 50% in 2019 and 2018. So basically, I can't say for sure. I can only sort of maybe presume.
No further questions.
Perhaps the applicant can clarify that when we get to their presentation. Mr. Merritt, any questions, please, of the assessor?
Mr. Wong, you've developed another NOI to, probably to, justify the model, or the use of the model's NOI. So, but you haven't expanded in regards to your NOI, and you've just relied on to the model's NOI. So why are you just trying to justify the model?
Justify / support the model, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. And I have no questions of the, oh, yes, I do have actually. Mr. Wong, page 10, from Shinto Living. Do you know if this ad, first of all, when were these pictures taken, and what do they reflect the current condition of the property?
They were taken from the internet recently, so I can't say for certain, but I believe they are reflective of the current condition of the property.
Okay. Thank you. Is it possible that the rents presented are post-reference?
The rents on there are post-reference, so I ask that you do not pay attention to them, but the information that I presented on my page 6 are based off of the information that is pre-referenced, their income statement and income from, yeah.
Okay, but to your knowledge, these pictures represent the current physical condition of some of the apartments, shall we say?
Yes, I believe that this is the representative of the current condition of the property.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. That's my only question. Mrs. Schindlerman, so you have rebuttal. Ms. Graywood, do we have that rebuttal included in our?
Yes.
I'm sorry, pardon me?
It has been distributed, it should be in your folder.
Do we have to refresh again?
No, it should be there. You could try refreshing.
Okay. Okay. Does everybody have the rebuttal? Mr. Wong, do you have it?
I have it, yes.
Okay. Mr. Merritt?
Yep, fine.
Mr. Marks, you're good?
Yes,
Okay.
good, thank you.
To the applicants, please, when you're ready.
Thank you. The rebuttal is rebutting the expense ratio. We're just going to explain a few issues about the expenses in this particular property. 333 Wellington is an older building in a location that requires suitable upkeep for the neighborhood. And maintenance costs are higher for this reason. Landscaping costs are higher. Again, we have to have some flowers, have the grass neatly cut, and it's just as a result of where it's located. Snow removal is high because there's no place to pile the snow, and all the snow has to be hauled away. Hauling is the more expensive portion of snow removal.
Okay, Mrs. Schindlerman, excuse me.
Yep.
Now we're not really rebutting or evidence against the assessor or to be presented in your evidence. It's a fine line here, but I'll allow it. I see where you're coming from. But it's kind of, you understand, it's kind of not rebuttal. It's more like presenting your side of the evidence. But okay, we'll just go ahead with this. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I understand. It's a little bit hard to rebut expenses, but without giving more information. This property, I'm not sure if the assessor is aware, has 36 single garages. That is the parking that is provided. It has 36 single garage door openers and gravel floors. And the garages are starting to lean. They're structurally not completely sound any longer. And so one of the costs that is on this particular property, which may not occur in some other properties, is adjusting the overhead doors for 36 garages as the winter and summer and they're leaning and that sort of thing. So that is another cost that maybe wouldn't be understood for this property. And then there's also 36 garage door openers that need to be maintained, and this is not efficient and not cost effective. Property also has some ventilation issues in the washrooms, and high condensation and mold are existing. And so in order to keep this building in shape, we have to frequently paint to keep the mold and condensation at bay. The elevator, there's one elevator for 49 units that's spreading the cost of, the monthly elevator contract, which is very high, over only 49 units. So the elevator cost is very expensive for this property. And the age, the electrical is fuse boxes. Some of them have been changed to maintain the safety in the building, but fuse boxes need to be changed to breakers. And that's what's been happening in the building as well. And so for this reason, we feel a higher expense ratio than is being used by the assessment department.
Okay. Mr. Wong, any questions on the rebuttal?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions on the rebuttal?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks, any questions?
No questions. We have this time, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions on the rebuttal either. To the applicants, please bear with us while we pull up your brief. All right. The applicants, please proceed.
Thank you. The property under appeal is 49 units built in 1954, located in the Port Rouge area. Building has a brick exterior and no balconies. There are 24 one-bedroom units and 25 two-bedroom units. The income approach on page 2 uses a similar potential income, a vacancy, and net operating income as the assessment department, or sorry, not net operating income, net income before operating costs. Operating costs are 424,770, which is 55%. And the net operating income of 347,539, capitalization rate of 5.75, and an estimated market value of 6,044,159. Page 3 shows support for the rental income. The assessment department rent figure is about $1,357 per unit, similar to the subject actual rents, and supported by these comparables here. We mostly agree on this, so I don't have to spend much time on this. We've also used the vacancy rate in accordance with the assessment department, and the expense ratio is really the issue here for this particular property. Actual expenses for the property are much higher than 55%. We have stabilized the expenses at 55%. Just evidently, if we go back to page 6 on the assessor's brief, and he stabilized, he went to the trouble of stabilizing the 5 years of expenses here. And I've calculated the ratios, and for 2018, it's 53%, 2019 is 54%, 2020 is 51%, and 2021 is 56%, and 2022 is 51%. If we average those 5 years, we get to 53%, which is slightly lower than the 55% we've used. Also, the 148,000 adjustment that was made for each year, none of it was adjusted for CPI, so the one average was used for all 5 years, which would not really be normal. There would be some increase in expenses, as we all know, everything went up.
Another facet that this building has from a maintenance perspective that others may not have as it relates to the expense ratio. The way that it was constructed makes it very difficult to find plumbing leaks, and if the leak is on the wrong side of the structural masonry wall, a lot of drywall work, patching, remediation for a simple service call to fix a leak is required, and that's not conventional amongst any other apartment buildings that we manage.
The other thing I wanted to mention about the adjustment to the expenses by the assessment department is the 2022 and 2021, those repairs and maintenance were basically not included in his sort of sum up of where the expenses should be. But in fact, those were expenses that were in place at the time. Some of them are not a major renovation, but more of a replacement nature. But of that 356 and 317, the adjustment is arbitrary. It's hard to say what it really should have been. So that's my comment on that. But like I said, the average used by the assessment department for his workup was 53, and we are at 55.
In addition to the overhead doors on the garage and the maintenance required to get folks in comfortably, if you just look at an aerial photo of the subject property, there is much more square footage of roof that needs to be maintained, not replaced, but maintained so that people's belongings are not leaked on or damaged, as compared to something with open air or a dense parking structure. You have roof over every garage stall.
Page 4, we're at the capitalization rate analysis. The assessment department used 5.6 with the appropriate rents. This capitalization rate is more accurate. However, using the assessment department rents vacancy expense ratio, the capitalization rate should be in the 5.75% range. As these rents are difficult to achieve with the new product available, that's modern balconies, in-suite laundry, and amenity spaces. This is basically, the subject is an older style building, less attractive to current renters, and this is a huge risk with increased new construction available. 314 Broadway sold in 2021 at a 5.5 capitalization rate. It's larger than the subject with 87 units, and it's sold for $7,330,000 or $84,000 per unit and change. The subject property is in a better location, however, the rents are higher, which would increase the risk of achieving these higher rents, and therefore the capitalization rate would be higher compared to 314 Broadway. The per unit value using this valuation is $123,347 per unit. That's for the subject property, and that's 50% higher than the 314 Broadway sales. So even with the higher cap rate, the subject property has a much higher per unit value. We respectfully submit that the value of the subject property is $6,044,000. That's all, thank you.
Thank you to the applicants. Mr. Wong, any questions?
No questions.
The applicant's evidence? No, okay.
No questions.
Mr. Marks, any questions?
Yes, on the garage, that's a flat roof garage?
Yes.
So they're from your,
There's it's tar and gravel roof, so what we're saying is that's a roof that has to be maintained that another property may not have if you have that square footage of roof for every garage stall.
Right,
As opposed to a parkade, which would just have
and
a more dense roof.
structurally, is there only walls? and
It's
stuff?
all masonry block, so the block is starting to let go, and then we're repointing it and pulling it back with structural steel where we have to, so that it stops leaning.
Now, in the suites, it's ongoing upgrades?
Yeah, so it would be a suite renovation on turnover. The photo showing is not representative of the entire property. There's a number of suites that are not renovated.
So this goes electrical, plumbing, kitchen cabinets, flooring.
The flooring's not being replaced, just repaired.
Basically, it is a hardwood floor then? Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. Mr. Merritt, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. To the applicants, page 4, regarding the comp at 314 Broadway for the cap rate study. How old is that building?
Wait, do I have the year in here? I'm sorry, I did not put the year in here. I would say it's probably a little bit older than this subject. The subject is 1954. This is probably similar to maybe the other properties on Broadway, 1940 maybe.
Kind of looks like a heritage building, possibly older than that. Would that, I guess you can't answer the question. Yeah.
Right,
okay.
I mean, possibly it's.
Yeah. And, sorry, Mr. Wong, is there an age variant on the subject property, effective age?
I don't believe so.
No, okay. It just looks more modern than the comparable there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's a
To the applicants, I'm not sure who wants to answer. So we've got a net operating income of approximately $70,000 in difference. And from what I understand, I think it's your application of the expenses. Although it's not that much, it's 2%. So I'm wondering, I obviously you have a lot of experience with creating these income and expense statements. Are you including any capital costs, or have they been separated from the expenses?
Can I just clarify one thing of what you said? It's actually almost 10% difference, because the income valuation on page 4 of the assessor's brief, the expense ratio is 45.6 and we're at 55.
But I'm talking about the net operating income.
No, the expense ratio.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking about the net operating income. The assessor's at 421.36. You're at 345.39.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
There's a $70,000 difference in the net operating income.
That's right.
And when you've prepared your income and expense to come up with that adjusted net operating income, are you removing capital costs?
We're removing some of the expenses that would be considered more of a capital nature, yes.
Okay.
They were 79%, but we've reduced it to 55%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's hard to differentiate because a plumber will go in and they'll go in to fix something, they'll start fixing something, and then they may find that they have to replace something. So sometimes it's difficult to split hairs on an invoice.
Yeah. Okay. So repairs and maintenance. So the assessor pointed out there was 1 or 2 years that were the maintenance had gone really had increased significantly, and he made adjustments for that, averaging it out, I guess, is where the difference is here. Can you comment on why in those 2 years there was so much expense incurred in the building? I noticed there was a boiler replaced, for instance.
Yes, exactly.
The boiler, actually, that's not included in the expense number, that's taken out already, which is why it sends it down here.
Okay, what else would have been done in general? Can you comment on that it increased so much?
There would have been some kitchen cabinets that were replaced, some appliances that were replaced, countertops in a handful of units. Again, it's expensive to work in this building.
Okay, so the appliances would have been capitalized, right?
Right. And we've adjusted for that by coming down from a roughly 79% to 55%.
Okay, okay. All right, just trying to get a clear picture of what happened in those 2 years. Yeah, okay. All right.
Sorry, just with regards to, I guess, that
Mr. Wong.
I guess 314 Broadway, it was built in 1909.
Okay, thank you.
All right, 1909. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wong. All right.
Yeah, and I guess maybe just for a little bit of clarification, would I be able to ask a question on just the expenses?
You certainly can.
Sorry, on your page 5, it says tenant area repair and maintenance at 177,000. Do you know what that's comprised of?
That would have been some of the capital work that we did, and that's why it was adjusted down. So if you look at the expense ratio that we calculated at 79%, would have encompassed that, and then we ratcheted down to 55%.
Okay, and you just sort of adjusted it down to 55% to adjust for any capital that might have occurred?
Correct.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all my questions. Any requirement for summary by either party? Mr. Wong?
I guess just that, you know, whether my methods for adjusting the expenses, like I think that's what I deem to be reasonable, and I've sort of shown how I made those adjustments on my page 6, and I just feel it's reasonable and maybe a little bit more reasonable than adjusting something from 79% to 55%. So I guess that's pretty much everything, and I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $7,502,000.
Okay, thank you. Do the applicants have a requirement for summary on this one?
Yeah, just to summarize, we're comparing our expense ratio stabilized at 55% that is specific to this property as opposed to model driven. As we've described, there are a number of unique elements specific to this building that the model may not have been able to pick up, such as the maintenance associated with the individual garage stalls and their roof and their structure, such as having one elevator over 49 units, which is fairly rare, such as being on the river and having to make sure that our riverbank is stabilized and that our grounds are properly maintained and that it's well landscaped. So I would contend that our workup is more specific to this particular asset at an expense ratio of 55%, as opposed to the model driven expense ratio, which took us to 46%.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ackman. That concludes 333 Wellington Crescent. I'm gonna recess for 8 minutes, so we'll come back at about 2:42. Thank you, Ms. Graywood. I'll now call the hearing back to order. Next item on the docket is 267 Sherbrooke Street, file number 24-536. Address is 267 Sherbrooke Street, roll number 12090575 and we're dealing with a 2025 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Wong, when you are ready, 267 Sherbrooke Street.
Okay, the subject property is 267 Sherbrooke Street. The file number is 24-536. The roll number is 120-905-75800. This is for 2025 assessment year, and the total value is $11,846,000. This is a residential multi-use property, so it's an apartment with some commercial space in it. It's 6 stories high, and it was built in 2019. It has 71 suites with 35 indoor parking stalls and 16 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. So just on Sherbrooke Street between Portage Avenue and Broadway. On page 4 is our income valuation. For the apartment, we use average rents of $1,109 to get a potential income of $945,000. We used a vacancy rate of 3.6% and to get an effective gross income of $911,000. And we used a 42% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $527,000. Capped at 4.85%, we have an estimated market value of $10,881,000 for the apartment. For the commercial portion, we used a gross potential rent of $60,000, and we used a 6% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $56,000. And we used a $8 rate for shortfall and a 3% expense rate, giving us a net operating income of $53,000. Capped at 5.5%, we have an estimated market value of $964,000. On page 5 is information on the subject property regarding the apartment rental rates and the commercial rental rates. Once again, the apartment rental rate is $1,109, and the commercial rates range from $15 to $19 a square foot. On page 6 are some apartment rental comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 7 are some commercial rental rates that range from $15 to $28 per square foot, which supports the model's rates of $15 to $19 per square foot. On page 8 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. You can see in 2022, their income was $1,044,000, with their expenses being $475,000, giving a net operating income of $568,000. To try to stabilize the property, the net operating income, I used a 2022 income of $1,044,000. Average their expenses from 2022 to 2021 at $479,000, getting in net operating income of $564,000. The actual, if you look at my note, the actual commercial income is $13,000, but the market potential income should be about $66,000. So their actual income is pretty low compared to what a market commercial space might achieve. Considering that the actual commercial rent is a little bit low, the estimated NOI of $564,000, although a bit lower, supports the model's NOI of $581,000. On page 9 is information on how we derived our cap rates. On page 10 are some cap rate sales. On page 12 is some information on the subject property with some interior photos. So just a quick description. The Sherbrooke Flats is a modern concrete building with a great central location. Suites feature floor-to-ceiling windows, modern kitchens with stainless steel appliances, luxurious bathrooms, and top-of-the-line fixtures, ensuite washers, and high-quality lighting throughout. The remaining pages are the income statements submitted by the owner. So once again, their actual NOI, although a little bit lower than the model, it supports the model because the commercial rates are probably be a little bit higher. And if it were to sell on the market, it would utilize commercial income that's higher than the 13,000 that they actually achieved. So we feel that their actual net operating income supports the model's net operating income. And the model cap rate is supported by the market. I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $11,846,000.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Before we proceed with questioning, Mr. Wong, the rule includes 2 classifications. Can you read the separate valuations for each class code?
Yes, for the class code 20 value, that portion is $10,882,000. For the class code 60 other property portion, the assessed value is $964,000.
Okay, perfect. Totaling
$11,846,000.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. Excuse me. Do the applicants have any questions of the assessor's evidence presented?
Yes, thank you. On page 4, Mr. Wong, did you consider some of the other costs that might be included in this property when you pick the 42.9 ratio, comparing it to the actual that was provided?
The 42.9 is model derived.
Right. Okay, so then that's a no.
So I didn't pick the 42.09.
Okay.
But newer apartments typically fall between like the 35 and the 42 range. So in my experience, the 42 is a little bit on the higher end of the range. So I feel it's reasonable.
Okay.
Mrs. Schindelman, could I ask you a favor here?
Yes.
We've got 2 income streams, so would you mind referring to which income stream you're asking questions about so we can keep track, please?
Absolutely. I'm working on the apartment first.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll sort of do everything for the apartment first, and then I'll move to the retail tenants.
Thank you.
Okay, so regarding page 10, your cap rate comparables, would any of these comparables be comparable to the subject?
I guess the most comparable would be for 2390 McPhillips.
2390 McPhillips.
It is the newest property.
Correct.
Do you think the location is comparable?
No, it's not.
Would the location have much of an effect on a property?
Potentially, yes.
Was that considered when you picked your cap rate?
I didn't pick the cap rate. It's a model derived cap rate.
Right. Right, so just to carry over from our last discussion, or one of our last discussions, then this is all model driven and there's nothing specific about this workup, income workup to the specific subject property.
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna move over to the commercial space on the main floor. So once again, not once again, but the gross potential rent of 60,000. You've already declared that this is not at all being achieved at the property, at the subject.
It doesn't appear so, no.
Correct. Would that be reason to adjust the capitalization rate if we were to use the 60,000 and it's not at all being achieved at the subject property? Would that affect the capitalization rate? Maybe make it higher because it's not happening. So an investor would look at this property and see that it's getting 13,000 in rental income, but the salesperson is putting it in at 60,000. Wouldn't the investor probably increase the cap rate because the risk of getting 60,000 would be huge?
There is that potential, but yeah, it would be it is possible.
Okay. Is 5.55 below the range of the 20 to 80% range on strip centers? On retail, I guess. So if you look at page 9.
It is in the lowest 20th percentile.
So why would that be?
It is a new property, and the 20th and 80th percentile, it includes properties of all ages.
Right.
From a retail perspective, do you think that having parking is important?
I would say so. You know what? I don't have a ton of experience in that area, but I believe that in my experience, it seems, my limited experience, it seems like it would be important for commercial space to have parking.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions of the assessor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Wong, this building was just most recently built, 2019.
Yes.
You get a chance to look at any of the building permits or anything like that, or know what it might cost to build?
I did not look, no.
Okay. So you weren't looking for the field sheet at all then?
I did not look for it, no.
Okay.
Or
That's fine, Mr. Wong. Wait, one second here. So you agree with the applicant that the code 60, the commercial spot, would not be obtaining a gross income that the model generated, correctly?
it appears to be collecting less than what the model has estimated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. Mr. Marks, any questions of the assessor?
My question's been asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, first of all, I'm going to start with the page 14 and 15, the income and expense submitted. Statement submitted, I guess I should say. Is that a combination of both components, residential and commercial?
Yes.
Okay, so it isn't broken out. Okay.
Well, it is like if you look on page 14, at the top of page 14, you can see that the rent is $1,082,000, and then you can look at the commercial rent being $13,299.
Okay, yeah. Okay, but we've got two income streams here with percentages assigned to each income stream. So technically, it's not broken out.
No. So that's why I kind of, in summary, I kind of just lumped them together to try to estimate the operating income for both the commercial and the residential, because it's just easier to look at.
Okay, thank you. Now the office portion, incomes workup. Can you explain to me what rent you're assessing, what lease rate you're assessing it for? I'm sorry, it's on page
5.
5. Okay. Page 5, okay. Sorry, I'm just finding it here, loading. Okay, so what's your blended rate, please?
Uh, I just have to do a calculation.
Okay,
$16.42.
okay, 1643 is I guess would that be the model rate?
Yes.
Okay, and on page 5, there are 4 units in there.
Yes.
Premises. Okay, there's 4, okay. Do you have any information on the actual rents collected on those 4 units or any leases?
There is some information on page 17.
Okay, if you just wait for me to swipe down there, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm on page 17. I see only 2 units out of 4. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, it looks like there's 2 tenants, and as far as the department knows, there's 4 premises.
Okay, perhaps the applicants can clarify for us later. So what you're showing here is two units. The first one, Winnipeg Trails Association. 1,500 square feet at $320 per month. Am I reading that right?
It appears to be the case.
Okay, and the highlighted one in yellow
Yeah.
is we'll call it unit 110.
Yeah.
Floor area 1660, 1562 a square foot. Okay, and then a recovery there. Okay.
So yeah, it appears that the I don't know if it's a net rate or a gross rate, but
Yeah.
the for unit 111 it's $2.57, and for unit 110 it's $11.25.
So we've got, sorry, what was the first one?
$2.57.
Okay, and the second one's $11 and
I believe it was $11.25.
okay. We'll get clarification from the applicant, what's going on there physically with the income, I guess. Okay. I think that's all my questions. Do the applicants have rebuttal at all for this presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Graywood, do we have access to that rebuttal?
Just distributing it.
Thank you.
Should be there.
Okay, does everybody have the rebuttal submitted by the applicants?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Wong,
I'm still waiting for it.
okay. We shall wait for you.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Schindlerman, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. The first part of the rebuttal is rebuttal to the expense analysis. So it's kind of similar to maybe what you mentioned before regarding the residential portion. We have an issue with this property, and the security and safety costs are very high due to the location. And so we've included a chart here showing the last 3 years of, or 2 years of security costs, which were 24,000 over the 2 years. And it just shows each, you know, we have guard service, we have guards calling in to remove people, we have repairs to fix broken windows and all that sort of thing. We're changing locks because of break-ins. And on page 2, you'll see a list of all the guards called to the building over the 2 years. It does rebut the expenses, but it also supports a higher capitalization rate for the neighborhood situation. So on page 4, in rebuttal to the capitalization rate analysis, okay, I guess the first line is about our brief, so I guess I won't, I'll address that later.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, starting with the second paragraph, the city valuation of income producing property shows a range for capitalization rates of 20 to in the 20 to 80th percentiles of 4.75 to 5.545 for multi-residential properties. The assessment department capitalization rate of 4.85 suggests an excellent property. However, the subject property would be at the higher end range to reflect the risk due to the difficulties experienced in the neighborhood. Yes, it's a brand new property and it looks great, but the reality is the neighborhood has not allowed it to be successful, and the costs are high for constantly fixing things and repairing things, and the security and safety costs. Unfortunately, this is a result of the property, of the location, I'm sorry. And it's not going to change. It's hopefully going to get better in future as they try to fix up Sherbrooke Street. And certainly people are trying to do that, but still, it's still happening. It's still experiencing all the issues that it is.
From a multifamily perspective, a typical investor would expect a lower cap rate to offer above average income growth and rental growth. And our view is that the subject's location and neighborhood does not provide for that, demonstrated by the additional security expenses that we're having to incur.
Oh, and for the retail section, The 20th to 80th percentiles is 5.6 to 7.25. And the assessment department is using 5.55, which is below that range. Again, suggesting an excellent property. And the retail on the main floor, retail / office, it's not anywhere where it should be. And the investors would know that. And so using a very low cap rate like 5.55 would not be viewed as market for this property. Only one space there's 4 spaces, that's correct, and I can clarify that later as well. Only one of the spaces is actually on a conventional net lease. There's 2 other spaces that are occupied, but it's mostly a charitable offering by the owner of the property. The owner of the property is an architect, and so he allows one of the tenants,
Winnipeg Architecture Foundation,
to be in the building for a very marginal rent. That's post-reference. They weren't in the building at 2023, but they are there now. And the other one again is they're also gross leases, and they're literally paying nothing. $50 a week, I think, is what one of that tenant is paying.
Okay.
And so with the results of the low rents, the neighborhood, and the high expenses for the safety and security and the crime issues, the capitalization rate has to be at the top end of the range, not at the bottom.
Okay.
I'll just keep going a little bit. It's a little bit more on the capitalization rates for the residential portion. Again, the assessment department has the same chart, which I realize the chart is supporting the model. It's not supporting the subject building. So I probably don't need to go through these again. You've all seen them. And I also have, unless you have a question on them, but we'll go on to the commercial rents. The second part of the rebuttal shows it's regarding the assessment department comparables on page 6, I guess. No, on page 7 of the assessor's brief. So in order of the chart, I've included some photos of the comparables, which are traditional retail spaces or retail and office spaces. And the subject property has no back door, difficult loading, difficult garbage. And again, it's limited to, the subject space is limited to the residential portion function of the building, the heating, the cooling. And so if on the main floor, if they wanted to do something that required more HVAC, that would be impossible to do for them, not like in the subject property, in the assessment department comparables. 1340Ls, you can change anything for Qdoba, whatever they need. 1000 more, the same thing. And none of these are below residential properties. 1575 Regent, the same, 55 Waterford Green, they're all typical commercial properties that would achieve the rents that they show, which cannot be achieved at the subject property. So it's 1335 kind of 2360 Main, 1600 Nest, 53 Good. Again, it's just showing how the comparable leases are not in fact comparable and don't support the values used by the assessment department to the specific subject property.
Okay. Mr. Ackman, anything further to add?
no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude your rebuttal?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wong, any comments regarding the rebuttal presented by the applicants?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions of the rebuttal?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks, any questions for the rebuttal?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
And neither do I. We shall proceed to the evidence, the brief by the applicant. And when you're ready, Mrs. Schindelman.
Thank you. The subject property is 71 unit apartment building in West Broadway area. There are 6 floors. And a portion of the main floor is commercial space. Sherbrooke Street is a one-way street going north, located on Sherbrooke Street. Location of the property is played a significant role in the high maintenance and security costs due to frequent vandalism. The owner has taken to reimbursing tenants for their deductibles for smashed windows on their vehicles that occur in the underground parkade. That's what's happening there at this property. The owner is constantly hiring more security and spending more money to improve the security in the building, and this is a major problem. The residential units are small and finished in a minimalist fashion, which is not to everyone's taste, making it difficult to market. And only 12 units of the 71 have balconies. So it's a kind of concrete floor, kind of European style, small, minimalist apartment. The commercial space on the main floor is only 3,692 square feet. And the vision for this did not work out well for the owner. Only one tenant is paying rent on a net basis, and the other 2 tenants are not even covering the operating costs, and the third space is vacant.
And that's not for a lack of trying. There's been brokerages marketing the main floor space since inception. There's been very little traction from the community on it.
Page 2 is the income workup. The net income is based on actual rents, which are a little bit higher than the assessment department model. And vacancy is 2.11%, and the operating costs are 47%, which is a little bit higher than the model used, but it is justified in this particular case. Net operating income of $550,633 and capitalization rate of 5.25. Once again, the rents are higher, justify a higher cap rate to achieve those rents. It's a little bit more risky. And the neighborhood and the expenses, as I outlined already, make the whole investment a little bit more risky. The estimated market value for the residential portion is $10,488,245. I'll continue on the residential portion just to sort of keep it easier to follow. Page 3 is the comparable rents for similar properties. Once again, these properties are in better locations, more residential type locations. Sherbrooke Street is kind of a mix, but it's a little bit more of a rougher commercial street than a residential street. And so, like I said, the rents, to achieve these rents, which these rents have to be in place because it is a brand new building built in 2019, and the cost to build it, the owner has to try to get these rents, but the risk of getting these rents is difficult, and keeping the tenants once they've been there with all the crime and repairs needed, again, there's turnover.
Amongst the direct area, this building would have some of the highest rental rates on Sherbrooke Street and the competing streets.
Vacancy analysis for the residential portion is the actual vacancy was used for 2022. Newer condo projects in Osborne Village compete for similar tenants. Village Junction 24/7 and the Pulse. These buildings have units available for rent on Kijiji. In the immediate Osborne area, there are 162 brand new rental units to compete with 267 Sherbrooke.
Better location.
Also in a better location. Once again, actual expenses are used in the valuation. And again, there is a big component for vandalism and security costs. We'll switch over to the commercial main floor portion. For the commercial portion, we put in rents at higher than what's being achieved. We've tried to find market rents for this type of property. And 1 second. We come to an annual income of 30,000 per year, vacancy at 6% and market value, because the vacancy is actually 17%, but we put in a market vacancy of 6%. And operating cost shortfall at $9. Net operating income of $26, 26,607. And we've capped it at 7%. Again, this main floor commercial has not achieved anything that the owner expected and hoped for. And the value is $380,095. If we go to page 4, I have comparables for the net income used for the commercial space. I tried to find comparables that were small spaces like the Subject. And again, these are regular commercial spaces. They're not below residential. They're not located in this neighborhood. They're located on busy streets, busy plazas, Rossmere Plaza, Northgate Shopping Center, Gordon Avenue. And they're just not, I have to say they're not comparable, but I was just trying to find, Kidney Foundation, it's the same type of property, it's the same type of tenant that's in there, like an architectural foundation, or I can't remember the name of it. And just anything that would be similar that could go into this space is how I selected the comparables. Again, the 6% vacancy rate is within the range of the parameters for the general reassessment. And like I said, the actual vacancy is 17%. And the shortfall at $9 is the assessment department shortfall. So once again, the issues here are mostly expenses on the residential, the cap rates on both of them as a result of all the similar things, the neighborhood, and we come to a total value of $10,868,340. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you to the applicants. Mr. Wong, any questions on the applicant's evidence presented?
Yeah, on page 4, some of the rent comparables. I was just wondering, do you know the age of some of the comparables on that list?
I don't know the age. They wouldn't be as new as the Subject property.
Okay. Would I guess a newer property generally have higher rates?
That's not actually true in commercial space. The tenant comes in and fits it up how they use it for their space. So I mean,
It's much easier to retrofit that space as opposed to an apartment building. We can put a new HVAC unit on easily. You can put a new parking lot on easily.
Okay. So newer properties don't have higher net rates, or?
I think it's more location.
Oh.
Location would
Attributes, parking,
parking.
access.
Okay, but I guess just in
Co-tenancies,
terms of
anchor tenants.
okay, so you can't really say that a newer building normally has higher rates.
No,
I wouldn't say that for commercial, no.
Oh, okay. Also, you were mentioning that I guess you've had brokers try to rent out the space. I was just wondering, what are some of the rates that they're asking for to try to rent out the space?
They can't get an offer at any rate. Most recently, it's post-reference, so I don't want to speak to it too much. Someone brought an offer, signed a lease, and dropped off.
Mm-hmm.
So the owner's mandate is post it with TBD if you need to get me an offer.
Oh, so you don't know the types of rents that they've been requesting for, or?
Commercial isn't like multifamily where it's simply a posted rate. There would be many other factors that go in: who's fitting up the space, who's paying for the renovation, who's covering the insurance, etc. So it's not as easy as just what's the posted rate.
Okay, that would be all my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Mr. Marks, any questions of the applicants?
Yes, is there still a security issue with this space?
Yes,
And this is ongoing?
yes. As it relates to present condition, the owner is in the process of installing a very expensive high fence around the building to hopefully seat some of the break-ins.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions?
I don't think I have any, so thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. To the applicants, my first question is, I think I heard the type of the discrepancy in the accessible leased area rate. I believe you're saying it's only 2,692 square feet. The assessor's using 3,692?
I have 3692.
Okay, my mistake. Okay, thank you. And what market rent are you using to come up with your valuation?
Just quickly calculate it out. I just have the total there. $6.31.
$6.31?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that rate the actuals?
No, it is not. I used higher than the actuals.
Okay, so you used your comps from you provided comps. Sorry, I went back to the assessor to check out the footage comparison, but you just bear with me 1 second. You used the ones on, sorry, let me find the page.
Page 4.
Okay. So you've got ranges from low of, well, if we toss out the 451, that seems to be an outlier. We're looking at 775 up to approximately $12 range.
Yes.
And you've chosen,
Traditional commercial space.
okay, and you've chosen 631. Can you reconcile that for us with your comparisons?
There's a huge, in the retail world, there's a large correlation between the amount of tonnage, for example, that a space can have from an HVAC perspective and the amount of rent they can pay. So for example, a quick service restaurant like McDonald's would require a lot more HVAC than the Winnipeg Architecture Foundation. And of course, McDonald's can pay more rent than the Winnipeg Architecture Foundation. You could say the same thing for many restaurants. This space is not traditional retail space because it does not allow for the tons per square foot that some of the comparables would that are in traditional retail plazas that can accommodate, for example, a new HVAC unit or a power service upgrade specific to that unit. In this particular instance, that's not the case because of the mixed use nature as well. For example, the one that was thrown out as an outlier, Rossmere Plaza, I think there's 300 parking stalls there, I could be wrong, several hundred. There's a City of Winnipeg library that provides a wonderful co-tenancy that's a driver of traffic. Tim Hortons as well with a drive-through, a River City Co-op, or sorry, Red River Co-op. This property does not have any of those, and when we look at retail, as we alluded to earlier, the age isn't as important as some of the other attributes like parking, like who the other tenants are, like how much traffic the center sees. So for example, the restaurant that's on the main floor here, relying on walk-up traffic, there's no other tenants at the building that are bringing traffic that they may be able to benefit from. No one's going to Dollarama to buy a chocolate bar and then potentially stopping at this restaurant for a coffee. You have to have a conscious decision to stop at this restaurant, struggle for parking, find a place to then walk in maybe a not safe area to visit this restaurant. Whereas the other comparables are generally in better locations and generally have parking with more flexible units as it relates to who can move in and who can occupy them. Again, you're probably not going to want a McDonald's or a stinky quick service restaurant on the main floor of your apartment building whose odors and traffic and garbage could impact your residents.
Okay, what square footage does the restaurant occupy out of the 3,700 square feet?
I think it's 1666. It's like that.
So the remainder of the space is leasable.
Restaurant is 1666.
Okay, so we've got 2,000 square feet that's leasable. That makes the restaurant argument irrelevant for that space. The comparables you provided, they're non-restaurant, I assume?
Let's see. There's no restaurants, correct?
Okay. Okay. So how do you reconcile that 2,000 square feet against these non-restaurant comparables that are higher?
I guess because it has never been leased. And
Okay.
then now that there's a couple of office tenants in there that are paying only like $50 a week, they're not even covering the operating costs. So
Okay. Okay.
we can't lease it at anything, actually.
Okay. Excuse me. My last question, I believe, is underground parking. There is underground parking under this structure?
Yes.
How many spots would there be?
Oh, you know.
Investors brief says 35.
Yeah, yeah.
35? And are they
35
all,
and 16 out.
are they 35 plus 16? Okay. 51 spots. Okay. I assume that the 16 outside are along the back lane, I guess. 31 are in the underground parking. Are those spots available to the commercial tenants at all?
They're not available to their customers.
Okay, are they, no, but for the staff, for instance, like to be included in a lease, are there spots that are assigned to the commercial portion if somebody was to lease it? Or are they all occupied by tenants of the apartment portion?
Generally, we don't struggle to lease the parking stalls to the apartment tenants, and generally we try and maintain parking for the apartment tenants so that those can be rented. When they are included in the commercial, they would potentially be used to induce a larger tenant like Kerbrez, but they wouldn't be available for the smaller units.
Okay, but my question is, are they all occupied by the apartment tenants?
I believe they are. Kerbrez may rent one, I would have to check.
Okay, but majority are apartments,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
For sure,
Yes.
the majority.
Yeah, yeah, okay, all right. All right,
Mr. Chairman, can I go back to the applicants for just a brief question?
of course.
Okay. Either Mr. Ackman or Ms. Schindelman can answer this question. You had suggested that over the past 3 years, security has cost, I think it was like $24,000. So can you tell us whether it's been increasing each and every year to almost like to that number? Because there's definitely a security problem there.
Yes, I didn't analyze it by year. I analyzed it. It was analyzed by trade person. So we
Yeah.
have Brothers Lock, we have doors.
How does it broken down pretty good there?
It's not like $10 on card access, you would expect it here. Annual would come down, but that's really not.
But has it gone up each and every year in the past, few years?
What the owner's trying to do is invest, they've done a few larger capital projects, like for example, where they've thrown a lot of card doors on card access that wouldn't have been previously. So to answer your question, we haven't analyzed it like that, like Diane said, but we would expect or hope that some of the investments they've been making would actually reduce the security expense to potentially prevent some of the issues that we've been having. I don't think that that's readily evident in what we presented, but as I said, we didn't analyze it by year.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I thank you very kindly. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Wong, any requirement for summary on this property?
No, thank you.
Do the applicants have requirement for summary, please?
Yeah, we'd like to summarize. In summary, as compared to the assessment department, we're using actual rents and expenses. The vacancy rates that we're using for the commercial space is significantly lower than actual. The rents that we're using for the commercial space are significantly lower than actual. The majority of the differences relate to cap rate. And our contention is that this property is not amongst the best properties in the city of Winnipeg, as is shown by the cap rates that were selected compared to the range. We do not believe that this is one of the most desirable commercial properties in the city to an investor. And we do not believe that the residential building has a tremendous potential to grow rents like something with a low cap rate would, because of the security issues that we've been experiencing.
Okay, thank you. And finally, just to confirm, I want to confirm your requested values. I've got the apartment class code 20 are asking for $10,488,000.
Yes, that's correct.
And for the office or the class code 60 portion, you're asking rounded down to $380,000.
Correct.
Okay, for a total of $10,868,000.
Yes,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, that concludes 267 Sherbrooke. Next item on the docket is item number 6, file number 24581, roll number 12-03244-1000. Address is 7 Roslyn Road. And we're dealing with the 2025 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Wong, allow us to get to your brief, please.
Okay.
When you are ready, Mr. Wong.
Okay. The subject property is 70 Roslyn Road. The file number is 24-581. The roll number is 120-324-41000. The roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is $3,062,000. This is a residential apartment that's 3 stories high. It was built in 1957, and it has 30 suites with 9 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We used an average rent of $852 to get a potential income of $306,000. We used a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $296,000. And we used a 47% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $156,000. Capped at 5.10%, we have an estimated market value of $3,062,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is information on how we derived our cap rates, and on page 7 are some cap rate sales. On page 9 are some pictures of the subject property from their website. So the units appear to have been improved. On page 10 is their 2022 income statement, which indicates their net operating income to be about 172,000. And on page 11, it's their 2020 income statement, which indicates their income to be about 162,000. Both those NOIs are a bit higher than what the model is estimated at 156,000. So their actual income between, say, the 2 years is about 167,000, and that supports the model's estimated net operating income of about 156,000. And the model cap rate is supported by the market. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at 3,062,000.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Any questions by the applicants of the assessor's evidence presented?
I probably don't have any questions, just we have rebuttal.
Okay. And Ms. Haywood, please share that with the parties, please.
So it should be in your folders and then just send the email here. The assessor.
Does everybody have the rebuttal, Mr. Wong?
I'm still waiting.
Okay.
You have it now?
Okay, I am good.
Okay.
Okay.
Mrs. Schindelman, maybe to simplify, would it be fair to say you're entering for the record rebuttal on the evidence presented on the sampling of modeling comparisons for the cap rate study?
Yes, and then we have a little bit more information on the neighborhood at the back of the grade, at the back of the rebuttal grade.
Yeah, so maybe we'll just accept this information on the cap rate study sampling that the assessor provided, and then we'll proceed from there, please.
Sure, can I at the same time ask the assessor one question based on looking at the rebuttal?
You certainly can.
Would you say that 555 Corridon would be quite similar to the subject? It's similar year, it's a little bit smaller, similar year built, which does have an effect on, does affect residential space. Located in a very close by neighborhood. Would that look similar? Be one of the more similar ones of the cap rate chart?
555 Corridon could be similar, but there's also, I feel, maybe a few others that could be similar as well.
Okay. If you page through all the photos of the comparables, we can get to, I'm sorry, I did not page number these, the last two pages of the subject property. For the subject property. The last two pages are just showing the neighborhood There's a homeless encampment right behind the subject property. It's hard to see in the photo. The property manager. Can we present this or not?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Schindelman, we lost Mr. Merritt there
Nope.
for.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
You okay, Ron? Okay. Okay.
I'm here.
You heard everything? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Proceed, please.
Okay, so the last 2 pages are really just supporting the higher cap rate because of the issues of this specific building. There's a homeless encampment directly behind the building. It is detrimental to leasing when we bring a tenant by, a prospective tenant by. I mean, some people are not happy to lease in a place located this close to a homeless encampment. The photos are hard to see, but you can sort of see the colored tents in the middle of the picture. And then on the next page, again, sort of on the right side of the picture, and then some debris that is around right behind the building from the people at the encampment. And it is right behind the encampment. The property manager went out to take some pictures and had a little bit of a discussion with the people that live at the encampment and was yelled at to leave and go away. So that's one thing for the property manager to deal with, but for a resident to have to deal with that, it's not great for a residential property. So this is just in support of a higher cap rate than used by the assessment department.
Okay.
Like wasn't considered in the cap rate used.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wong, any comments, questions of the rebuttal presented by the applicants?
No comments.
Thank you. Mr. Marks, any questions of the rebuttal?
No comments at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I have no questions either. To the applicants, I'm going to find your brief here. Okay, does everybody have it? Please proceed when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. The subject property is 30 units, 3-story walkout, built in 1957. There's 18 bachelor suites and 19 one-bedroom, or 12 one-bedroom suites. They are also small and no balconies. They're situated on the Assiniboine River. There is a riverbank erosion issue at this property as well. And no air conditioning, no gym facility, no in-suite laundry, no common room for tenants. As I mentioned, there is a homeless encampment right behind, and there is potential for flooding at this location. Page 2, the income approach. We don't have an issue with the rental income used and the vacancy rate, total operating costs, that we're all market for that. It's very similar to the actual, but it's just the capitalization rate again that is our issue. We use a 5.4 capitalization rate, and that comes out to a market value of $2,892,000. Like I said, all other parameters are the same. Capitalization rates for residential, are in the 4.75 to 5.45 range for the 20th to 80th percentiles, and we've used 5.4 to mitigate the risk as outlined with the neighborhood, or actually it's not even the neighborhood, it is a little bit of the neighborhood actually, but it's actually right around the subject building. The building is older. There's only 12 parking spots for 30 units. So again, there is parking, but just not a full complement of parking. Security is an issue, discourages potential renters, and we feel that our capitalization rate at the higher end is more appropriate for this property. We have similar capitalization rate comparable sales, 181 Maryland, built in 1955, 5.23, 675 Tebow, built in 1961 for 6.42, and 534 Wardlaw, built in sold, I'm sorry, built in 1913, which is much older, but sold in 2020 for 4.99. So comparable 181 Maryland is shown here. Comparable 2, similar type building. Comparable 3, very close to the subject property on Boardroom. We respectfully submit that the value is $2,892,000 for the subject property.
Thank you, Mrs. Schindelman. Mr. Wong, any questions of the applicant's evidence?
Yeah, just on page 6, you had included the income statement from 2021.
Yes.
Did you look at their 2022 or their 2020 income statement at all?
I probably did. I didn't include it for some reason. I'm not quite sure. I would imagine it would be similar. Do you have it in your brief?
Yeah. I actually have 2020 and 2022 in my brief.
So
and
between the two of us, we have all 3 years.
yeah. And I guess I'm assuming I didn't put in 2021 because I don't think we have that one, but
Although the information on page 2 of your brief says that we did submit, so. So it's there somewhere.
yeah, okay. So I guess on your page 6, you're indicating that the vacancy is, it looks like maybe 0.33%.
That could be, I don't have it calculated.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that's a relatively low vacancy rate.
Yes, it is.
Correct? Okay, that would be all my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Mr. Merritt, any questions of the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Schindelman, I think you specified that there's 12 parking stalls?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Wong, I'm going to come to you. You had stated, I think there was 9 parking stalls. So what is correct?
We probably squeezed in 3 somewhere.
Yeah.
if
I
there's
would presume that because we're not verifying parking stall counts on an annual basis or anything like that, that I would presume that their stall count is correct.
So would the city adjust their records then? So we have an accurate count?
Sorry, the applicant's records are indicating how many?
12. And you are 9.
Yeah. I will update our stall count in our records.
Okay, I thank you. I think that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. Mr. Marks, any questions?
Yes, I do. Is this on the east side of Boardroom?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And the riverbank erosion, is that starting to come back towards the building?
It's been quite bad over the years and it's actually getting worse.
Foundation issues as well?
Losing parking stalls to it, and one of the reasons that we believe the cap rate should be higher, it is something that an investor would consider from a capital perspective in terms of the requirements to just maintain the number of parking stalls that you have, never mind add.
So the parking stalls are backing onto the river, obviously?
Falling into it.
Okay. And has there been any sort of work done on the riverbank to date?
I thought we had a major project with Maple Leaf, I just can't remember when it was.
Yeah, so it's an ongoing thing?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. That answers my question, Mr. Marks. I have no other questions. Requirement from our summary, Mr. Wong?
Oh, thank you.
applicant's requirement for summary?
Yes, just to summarize the differences in the briefs, we are on the same page as it relates to the revenue, expenses, and net operating income. The assessment department is using a 5.1% cap rate. We are using a 5.4% cap rate. Both are within the 20th to 80th percentile. The reason that we're using a higher cap rate is because of some of the capital considerations that this building is subject to as it relates to security and having an encampment behind it, as well as due to its proximity to the river and the effects that the riverbank has on the parking lot. Unfortunately, we don't have access to many comps from a cap rate perspective for multifamily. However, we do believe that the comp presented by the assessor on Corden is a very good comp for this property. It's similar in nature in terms of type of construction, 3-story walk-up, likely doesn't have central air conditioning, has a little bit of parking in the back, likely not 1-to-1. However, its cap rate is not impaired by the homelessness issue on the riverbank or by the potential costs associated with riverbank stabilization.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ackman. That concludes item number 6, 7 Roslyn Road. Last item on the docket today is item number 7, file number 24-490. Rule number 07569137655. Address is 70 Carriage Road, and we're dealing with a 2025 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Wong, I believe we got a recommendation here. Please go through your brief when you're ready, please.
Sure. The subject property is 70 Carriage Road. The file number is 24-490. The roll number is 07569137655. The roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is 11,338,000. I have a recommendation to revise the value to 9,113,000 based off of revised NOI of 496,659. And yeah, that is just based off of the income, the mailers that were submitted by the property owner.
Okay, Mr. Wong, do you have a revised workup on that?
I do not.
Okay, might as well deal with it now. What have you changed on there that resulted in the revision on the NOI?
The model was overstating the income and maybe understating the expenses.
Okay. And so your revised NOI 496,659, maintain the capitalization rate at 5.445%.
Correct.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Do the applicants have any comments?
No comment.
Do you accept the evaluation?
We do.
Recommendation accepted, okay. Mr. Merritt, any questions on the assessor's recommendation?
Not really, other than you wanted to know the NOI prior to the adjustment. The NOI for the city was 617,924, substantially higher than the NOI that they concluded with. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks, any questions on the recommendation?
Not at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I have no questions either. We'll ask the applicants to go to their brief, please, and enter for the record what you've submitted.
Okay. Our income approaches at rental income of 1,017,000 and change, vacancy at 2.35%, operating costs at 50%, and NOI as similar to the assessor at 496,660 and capitalized at 5.45% for 9,113,000.
Okay. 145, okay. So in other words, the assessor accepted your workup to come up with the revision. Would that be fair?
We agreed, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And had you submitted any rebuttal?
None.
None, okay. Okay. Hmm. That concludes item number 7, file 24-490. We have heard all the items scheduled at this hearing and it is now adjourned. Thank you to both parties for appearing. You'll hear from us as soon as possible.
Thanks very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you too.
Still getting out to the lake a few more times.
Going out tomorrow,
Good, oh, good.
well, for Wednesday.